Today we are going to talk about the root causes for sufferings in life. Matthew 5:3, Jesus says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Brothers and sisters, let me ask you a question, especially the Christians. I have 3 questions. The first one is, did Adam suffer before the fall? The second question is, did Adam suffer after the fall? The third question is, does the fall of Adam has everything to do with his disobedience as a sin, or does it also mean the choice he made for himself, which is the knowledge of good and evil? See, when we think it is because of the sin, all right, then all the Christian doctrines about even the original sin make sense. But if we consider the choice he made, the knowledge of good and evil, that opens up all kinds of mysteries for us to explore. So let's stick to that which is the knowledge Adam chose for himself, the knowledge of good and evil. See, the knowledge of good and evil is a knowledge of polarity, which means the knowledge of the choices we make between right and wrong. In other words, a choices between polar opposites, good and evil, right and wrong. So from Adam all the way to Plato, and Plato refining it, and it continues even to date, the entire human intelligence is based on the knowledge of duality, is built on the knowledge of duality. So what is the knowledge that Adam lost out? That is the knowledge of wisdom, wisdom of God. In the wisdom of God, when Adam was operating in the wisdom of God, there was no sufferings before his fall. When he chose human intelligence as his way of life, his way of making decisions, his way of discernments, then sufferings came along with it, and that was a providence in Genesis itself. Secondly, in Genesis, God gives Adam control over a variety of beings. And there is a list of it in Genesis. And when we look at that list, what is missing in that list is control over another human being. But you see, our polarity-based system and our polarity-based life is centered around gaining control and having control over, or letting other people take control of our being. So human beings having control over each other is a major effect of duality-based human intelligence. Now, does that have anything to do with human sufferings? Let's explore. Secondly, the kingdom of heaven that Jesus talks about, as in Matthew 5:3. See, a kingdom, it is where a people operate by the will of the king, whereas in democracy, the governments operate by the will of the people. So, in a kingdom, the will is very relevant, whether it's the will of the people or the will of the king. If the will of the people is more operative within the kingdom, then there is a conflict between the will of the king and the will of the people. That contradiction is the root cause of poverty, of crimes, lawlessness, and all kinds of problems. See, the kingdom of heaven in heaven does not have sufferings. That is why Jesus gave us the prayer, "Thy kingdom come as it is in heaven. Thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven." So, brothers and sisters, whether we like it or not, the kingdom of heaven is already on earth, except we don't know how to live by the will of God. That is where everything is going wrong, and that is the root cause of our sufferings. And Jesus answers to this problem in Matthew 5:3, "Blessed are the poor in spirit." So he is talking about spirit, okay? Spirit in the sense Jesus is referring to a conscious energy. Conscious energy that is poor means a conscious energy that does not have material entanglements. Well, let's look at this much deeper since we started exploring this. Now, to introduce this, I'm going to introduce to you Buddha. Now, why do I do this? See, let's kind of move away from Buddhism as a religion and Buddha as a religious head of that religion and look at Buddha as Siddharth, a prince who was well endowed with the prosperity gospel. He was very rich and he was very handsome and he had everything he desired in his life. But one day Siddharth witnessed human suffering. The contemplation and thoughtfulness of what he witnessed made him abandon his kingdom, abandon his princedom, and seek answers on a journey for spiritual enlightenment. So, what is being mentioned here in this discussion is what Buddha realized as a root cause of sufferings. And he says, the root cause of suffering is a desire, ignorance, and hatred. See, in desire he refers to pleasure of our sensory experiences, material entanglements, in other words, a desire to possess material beings and elements and everything else. And the third one is immortality. We desire immortality. See, desiring immortality is always going to be there because in many ways we are immortals. But since we are so entangled in the materiality of our being, we are trying to bring in immortality into mortality, which is materials. See, materials has a beginning and an end. Therefore, materials are immortal. And we always desire to bring in immortality into mortality. So that is the third thing. Third desire. Now, by ignorance, Buddha or Siddharth is referring to thoughtlessness. See, in thoughtlessness, it wipes out seeking. We believe, we trust, we have faith. But do we think? Do we contemplate? Do we seek the mysteries in what we believe, in what we trust, what we have faith in? Thoughtfulness leads us to seeking, and the seeking, by way of seeking, we are entering into divine wisdom, away from human intelligence. Therefore, what he means is thoughtlessness and the absence of divine wisdom brings us sufferings. Hatred, of course, it means lovelessness in our life. Now, in Buddhism, there is a concept called samudaya. Now, samudaya means arising. So, Buddhism refers to arising as a root cause of sufferings, because in this, samudaya is referring to something that is constantly arising out of us. It's a craving. It's a craving of desires and the craving of seeking mortality. See, the craving of seeking mortality is good, except we try to interpret that in terms of material definitions, in terms of human definitions. That is where things go wrong when it comes to mortality and immortality and the craving of mortality and immortality. So, that constant rising of desires, constant rising of wants, constant rising of seeking satisfaction, seeking pleasure, that leads to suffering. So, this arising is also known as tanha. So, in Buddhism, there is three kinds of tanha. One is known as kama tanha, which is the seeking or craving of pleasures, sensory pleasures, including sex, including wanting material acquisitions like wealth, like cars, like properties, like power, like control over another human beings. All of these are kama tanha. Then comes bhava tanha. Bhava tanha is a sort of a fixation on ourselves. In other words, not accepting our life as impermanent. Even when we go to other people's funerals, we get a glimpse of our own impermanency, our own mortality. But that quickly escapes our thought process, isn't it? Yes, we are being sensitive. But does our thought process include our own immortality? Own reality of immortality? No, it doesn't. Then comes vibhava tanha. See, vibhava tanha, although it kind of sounds opposite to bhava tanha, it's not. Vibhava tanha means it's a sort of a craving to avoid pain and sufferings. In other words, we look for quick fixes to pain and sufferings. That is vibhava tanha. So vibhava tanha is essentially the avoidance, looking for quick ideas, quick ways to avoid the sufferings in our existential reality. That's really what vibhava tanha means. So, instead of being philosophical, let's kind of bring science into the picture. Essentially, the universe is a function of a straightforward duality, which is matter and conscious energy. The conscious energy makes matter to be functional. Well, except matter and conscious energy are not exactly the equivalent opposite counterparts of one another. So it is not a sort of a dualistic concept, although it appears as. So let me explain what it is. In quantum fluids theory, it is not matter who created energy. It is the quantum fluids, which is a conscious energy, that created matters, which is very consistent with the Bible. Because the Bible says it is the breath of God. It is the energy of God that left him and created the universe. That is an energy form that created the universe. So it is very consistent with the Bible. So, brothers and sisters, our being, in other words, our body, for instance, it is a composition of matter, which is our cells, and the energy components that constantly creates and recreates our cells. Because our cells are not permanent. Even our life is going on, our cells are being created, they die, they are recreated, and the whole creation is going on within our body itself. And what keeps this creation active is that conscious energy that encapsulates every cell of our being. Every cell of our being. See, we are aware of our material being. But are we aware of our conscious being? See, consciousness in this sense is not our intelligence, it is not our mind, it is not our knowledge. Consciousness in this sense is the collective embodiment of all the conscious energy that embodies our material being. That's what it is. So even our mind and our intelligence and our thought processes, it actually is a function of this collective consciousness. So in spirituality, what we say as consciousness is that collective conscious energy that we are. So we are, in other words, matter as well as a conscious energy. That's what we are. See, matter is comprehensible with human intelligence, as in classical Newtonian physics. And it has been going on for thousands of years that we can identify matters, we can identify ourselves as matters, and we can identify intelligence as materially organized. But the conscious energy, it is indiscernible as matter. Except abstract thinkers do. Abstract thinkers can relate to our conscious being quite easily. But with divine wisdom, conscious energy becomes comprehensible. Secondly, matter is perishable. It is mortal. It has a beginning and therefore it has an end. So therefore it is mortal. Since the inevitability of mortality is associated with matter, decay and sufferings of the matter is integral to the matter itself. So the more we associate ourselves as matters, and with matters, we are associating ourselves with sufferings. Moving on. See, matter is static and inactive on its own, unless conscious energy moves them. Creating some amount of mortality matter is a never-ending pursuit of human will, because it is impossible. See, this impossibility, dealing with this impossibility requires a fair amount of possession of a matter, such as property, such as family, such as wealth, such as contacts, friends, education, accomplishments, building of structures, building of legacies, building of walls on the Mexican border. Legacies we want to create. See, this possession is the root cause, of conflicts and sufferings. Desire to possess materiality and desire to bring pleasures out of material elements and the desire to create mortality within material elements we possess. So this possession is what is called attachment in Eastern philosophy. So the problem with attachment, we become fixated with ourselves, fixated with the controls we have, fixated with who we are as limited human beings. And we also, in our fixation, we are romanticizing tragedy. What if? What could go wrong? What is the risk involved in it? What is that we can do to fix all of these things so the solution becomes permanent? The third thing is, see, we live in the past or we live in the imagination of a future. Unrealistic. So the past brings us problems. Remembering the past, it adds to our suffering. And imagining a fictitious future also adds to our sufferings. Then comes unable to handle the trials related to our mortality. So in other words, inability to cope with reality, that adds to our sufferings. As a result of all of these, our health deteriorates. Blood pressure, which damages our organs. Depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. All of these contribute to our adverse health conditions. Therefore, there is sufferings. Brothers and sisters, I introduced the concept of conscious energy. Conscious energy is immortal because conscious energy is what left from the breath of God. And that has no beginning. Therefore, suffering is not associated with conscious energy. That is why Adam did not have sufferings before the fall, because he was operating in his conscious energy, not in his material willfulness. See, it is a dynamic, conscious energy is very dynamic, it's not static. And it always flows towards a stronger and captivating energy field. Meaning, it's always flowed towards where it originated. So, the conscious energy field that left the nostrils of our Father is also flowing towards where it came from. That is the reason why it does not have a beginning, it does not have an end. It is immortality itself. This current is always there whether we participate in it or not. Participation alleviates sufferings. Participation brings us closer to divine wisdom. And when we operate in divine wisdom, that is the end of sufferings. So the end of sufferings is a reality when we operate in the wisdom of God. And that is why God created us. He created us in His image and likeness. And He gave us redemption by way of Christ so we can operate as children of God, executing the will of God as it is in heaven. So the kingdom on earth is an absolute dream of our Father in heaven. The problem and the reason for our suffering is we are not executing the will of God. we are striving to execute the human will, which is conflicting with the will of God. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Thank you for listening. God bless you.